mother's gospel. I came back a week ago. I spent about 2.5 weeks in my hometown with my mom. So this was, I went back there 2 years ago. I shared that story already at length in some of my previous sermons. But I had to go back because my mom she's okay. She's in her 70s, but the age is getting to her. And my sister and I just realized, okay, we have to sell the family home, place where we grew up, place that my dad and her built, and we have to get her a condo, something that she is going to be able to manage. Because a big house, a big yard, a big garden, it was way too much for her to handle. So we did that 2 years ago, and that was a long and emotional process, more than anything else. And now 2 years later, she's been literally every single time in the past 2 years. We talk once a week, generally. Every single time. So when are you going to come to see my new place? So I heard that about 100 times, not counting the messages. With the messages, it was much more. So I spent 2.5 weeks over there in her little condo, a one-bedroom apartment that she adores. She set everything the way she likes it. And a lot of new things in there. And then I see a lot of those like ornaments, remnants of the times long past, like stuff that I remember growing up with. Like she has this, like for the kitchen, this stuff for the spices. I remember like looking at that, like it was way up there. And right now it's kind of this height. But it's so cool to go there and see all the new mixed together in a new reality that is as beautiful as a reality that I remember that we lived through before. And the second part of my time that I spent in my hometown was a peculiar thing, because the hometown church where I actually found out about the existence of God and accepted Jesus and was baptized, they're constantly on the prowl trying to figure out how to preach the gospel. So as soon as I got over there, the first thing that they asked me, hey, you're going to be preaching this Sabbath. That was not optional. That was like, this is happening. And tell us what you guys do over there. That's what they want to know. That's what they care about. So I preached my sermon about that in the morning. Then there is an afternoon service over there, like the sundown service. I preached again about the stuff that we do over here. And then after everything was said and done, everybody just kind of rounded up in the front of the church asking questions again and again. And how do you do this? And why do you do that? And what do you think about this? And we want to do this, and so on. And these two things kind of got intertwined in my head, like the time that I spent with my mom and the time that I spent with church. And that's how this sermon came to existence. Because what I came to realize, listening to my hometown church and their efforts to make a difference in their little world, and I say little because my hometown is literally like 3,000 people altogether. It's still beautiful, like a lot of young people. It was awesome to go to the city square in the afternoons, and you see the strollers and kids running around and parents taking their kids out. Literally, I kid you not, at the same places where my mom and dad took me when I was that size. It's so interesting kind of to see that. It's a beautiful, live town that needs Jesus. And Christian Orthodox Church is very strong, pretty much in Serbia altogether, so in my hometown as well. So if you're a Protestant, if you're anything else but an Orthodox or a Catholic, they will pass by as well, you're suspicious. Anything you do is suspicious. What are they plotting now? What kind of scheme do they have right now? And stuff like that. It's always like that. And granted, it's like the United States politics with NGOs that brought a lot of things in my country that ended up being very unwelcome, created this stereotype of the Protestant churches that have this American background, being NGOs in secrecy. So they're trying to tell us about Jesus, but actually they want us to take GMO foods and stuff like that. It's silly, but still, people have this resistance. So they're always trying to find new ways how to preach the gospel without preaching the gospel. How to tell about Jesus without telling about Jesus. How to open the Bible and tell the truths from the Bible. I'm still struggling getting back to my English accent. Without actually pulling the Bible up and opening it and so on. So I was talking to them about, okay, how did Jesus teach? And I came to realize one very peculiar thing. I think Jesus taught preaching from Mary. Because literally, all of the methods that Jesus was using to preach the gospel is what moms use to raise their kids. It was so interesting to me to realize that. I would like us to go through a little bit of those steps, and I would like you to reminisce a little bit at your upbringing and think about that. And then I would like us to talk about things that we can do in our own worlds to make the gospel being preached. So let's start with Matthew chapter 13. Jesus spoke all these things to the crowd in parables. He did not say anything to them without using a parable. Jesus was a master storyteller of his time. And he would walk with the people through the fields over there in the nature, and he sees a sower over there on the side of the hill, and he's like, the kingdom of God is like a sower. And he points out, and everybody's like, yeah, we know that. Or, the kingdom of God is like this, or like that. Or, two brothers, or a father and two sons, or like always something that people could relate to, because he couldn't be straight up with them. The truths of the Bible were too much for them to handle, so he had to, I don't like to say dumb it down, but let's say simplify it and make it more relatable. Do you remember stories your mom would tell you? Like sometimes it was Hansel and Gretel, but sometimes it was a story of two kids in a neighborhood, you know? Or a story of, do you remember how your aunt, this and that? And then we would go at this and so on. Moms use stories because that is the easiest way for a kid to get intertwined into a reality that is not there at the moment, but the story creates a reality that you can fit into and experience it. That's what Jesus was doing. That's what he was trying to do when he was teaching people. He was trying to create a reality in which the truth of the Bible would be present without being told. So, one morning, usually I had this habit of just getting up in the morning, you know, we have breakfast, and I would leave. I would go for a walk. I was walking through my hometown. It takes half an hour in my hometown to get from one end to the other, so it was very easy for me to walk. And I just let my car didn't touch it at all for all the time that I was there. Oh, it felt so good. My goodness. So we were finishing breakfast, and we were talking, and my mom is like, so, do you remember when we went visiting our family in a neighboring town? And now she goes at length explaining me that, and I kind of recall it. I was a teenager or something like that. Well, so you remember when you had to sit next to your uncle George, and he was always telling those stories about his fishing stories. You remember those stories, right? And like, yeah, I remember that. And now the memories start coming back, and I start remembering everything. And I remember really not liking sitting next to him because he had bad breath. and Mom, you remember the stories. You really like those stories. Like, no, not really. I didn't like those stories. You remember he had a bad breath? Yeah, go brush your teeth before you leave. Okay. Like, okay, fine. You could have said that straight up. No, but it had to be in a story. I had to relate. It had to hurt. Now, what stories do you use when you talk to the people around you about what God did for you. It's very easy to reuse the old stories from the Bible, but the more our society evolves, the less those stories are relatable. What stories do you like to use when you're talking to kids about Jesus? When you're talking to, sorry, Wilson. When you're talking to them about, I already mentioned the sower. They don't even know what sowing means. They don't even know that cows give milk. They think it comes from a bottle, which is justified. They've never seen a cow giving milk. All they see is a bottle in a store. So, what kind of stories do you use to teach your kids about Jesus? Are you making them relatable, or are you just rinsing and repeating the old stories? I want to encourage you to think about this. I want to encourage you to think about not just, and this doesn't apply just to kids. This can apply to a coworker who never heard, who knows about religions and stuff like that, but never read a word from the Bible, never heard a word from the Bible. He wouldn't be able to tell you anything about it. But yet he finds it interesting how spirituality can change people. What are you going to tell him? What story are you going to share that is going to open up his mind to be open to hear about Christianity and your faith and what you believe and what God did for you and how Bible talks to you as a living word when you pray, without making him say, you know what, I don't, Christianity is not my thing. I prefer just to be spiritual or whatever. I'm not going to give you, by the way, this sermon is not about answers. This sermon is about challenges. Because that's what I was put up against when I was in my hometown church, and then I returned the favor. And I didn't tell them what to do. I didn't give them suggestions. I literally put them in situations, okay, think about it. Pray about it. So I want to challenge you the same thing. As we go through this sermon, I want you guys to do the same. I want you to think about people who you cannot open the Bible to because they're not going to be able to hear it, but you have to tell a story. I want you to think of what kind of story would you tell them. Feel free to take a note. If you're already playing with your phone, make it useful. But if you have an idea, awesome, write it down. If you don't, pray about it when you get home. Pray about it this week. Because here's the thing. If they don't hear it from us, who are they going to hear it from? If God did something in your life, if God did something for you, that needs to be heard. And that needs to be told. So figure out a way how to say it without pulling all the religion thing into it. Next thing that Jesus was doing is written in Matthew chapter 14. Let's go there. Matthew chapter 14, verses 14 to 16. When he went ashore, he saw a great crowd, and he had compassion on them and healed their sick. Now, when it was evening, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a desolate place, and the day is over now. Send the crowds away to go into the villages and buy food for themselves." But Jesus said, "They need not go away. You give them something to eat." And now you know the rest of the story. They freak out. They start panicking. We have no food. What do we have? We have some bread and fishes. Jesus blesses it. He feeds the people. One thing that Jesus was doing all the time, and you see that throughout all of the Gospels, and then later on in the book of Acts, where the first church is described, you see the same thing. They would be healing and feeding people first. They would be giving people first the basics of what they need before opening their mouths to teach them. Jesus was doing this all the time. He would be meeting the needs, all of the practical needs that people needed before telling them, okay, the kingdom of God is, and so on. And don't moms do the same? every single morning over there. Every single morning. The first thing is the smell of coffee. So the first day she asked me, how do you like your coffee? I'm like, okay, just make whatever you make for yourself, make that for me. That was the last time I drank her coffee style. So after that, I kind of offered instructions that she gratefully accepted. But that was every morning. Okay, sometimes if she hears that I'm awake, hey, do you want some coffee? Of course I want some coffee. So that was before breakfast. That was like the thing. Open all of the windows, vent the whole place, sit down and sip a coffee, and just chat, just talk. And then, of course, before I leave, when do you want lunch? What do you want for lunch? Surprise me. Whatever. Okay, I'll surprise you with, and then she tells me what she's going to surprise me with. Because she already made a plan. So it's not like she's asking me just in case if I have an idea, but she already has a whole plan for dinner, for lunch, for dinner. And then, of course, there are warnings. So when we go visit these friends, those relatives, be prepared. And then the list of what is most likely going to be over there for food. I ate over there constantly. It was like 1 meal a day. From morning until evening, just kept eating. If I didn't walk around, I would come back with 20 pounds extra. I brought only 6 pounds extra, which is commendable for me. But meeting the needs first. Before we had some really serious talks. It's so different. This is the first time that I actually spent time with my mom since 1997, when I moved out of my hometown and never went back. And I remember her from when I was 18, 19 years old. And yes, again, as I was maturing, I realized that she was also a very different person than what I remember. I remember this one protective side of her, and this mighty and high, not realizing how actually fragile and how actually worried and fearful she was through many periods of our lives while I was there and after I left. And it was very nice to spend now time kind of in reversed roles, where she used to teach me stuff. Now God bless me that I can teach her stuff that He taught me that she was grateful for. But none of those happened before some food. Every single time, once everybody is fed, and then like the first week was just 2 of us, then the second week my sister came as well. So once she was sure that everybody was okay, now we can talk. What do you do for your neighbor? What do you do for here's the thing. You're going to feed your kids because you're legally obligated to feed them. I hope that's not the only reason you do that. But are you interested in what's happening with your neighbor, with your friends, with your coworkers, with your colleagues, with maybe even people you don't like that much? Are you interested in their lives? Are you asking yourself a question, or do you ever pray and ask God, okay, God, what can I do for people around me today? We usually ask a question, God, what can you do for me today? Or at best, we're going to ask ourselves, what can I do for myself today? How often do you ask yourself? And this is a question that should be a daily one. How can I preach the gospel without opening my mouth? And then I realize my elderly neighbors are struggling with broken branches because of this snowstorm. What are you going to do? Are you offer your help, or you're going to hope that or you're going to pray for them that somebody helps them? That is the same thing as tweeting help when somebody is being raped. I would really encourage you to think about your engagement with people around you. and asking yourself, what can I do for them? Because the bottom line is, we don't have time for other people in our society. One cool thing about my small hometown, even though I wouldn't last a month of living over there, I would go nuts very quickly, how everything's slow and similar to the previous day is, but that's their lifestyle. They're very, very kind of meshed in. And everybody knows things about everybody. That is the downside of it. But the upside is when somebody needs help, people are going to just show up. Very often you don't even need to ask for help. People are, oh, you're getting your firewood coming in next week. When's that going to be? I got to tell my son so we can be there. It's not even, hey, do you need help? No, we're going to be there. That's kind of expected from people over there. One really cool thing that they started doing 2 winters ago, they have like something similar to what we have over here as a street beat. The only difference is what they would do, they would have meals prepared and they would take them to homes of elderly people, widows, and people who couldn't support themselves or had hard times with doing that. So at one point, that was winter 24, they went to deliver the food to one of the elderly ladies, and her son was over there with her as well. So they're grateful. They take the food, and he takes the food, puts it on the table, and he starts serving. And the cats jump on the table that she had. She had like 6, 7 cats living with her. And this elder from church, he immediately starts chasing the cats away. Like, no, come on, go away. And the grandma tells him, no, son, leave those cats. Let them have their food as well. Because if it were not for them, I wouldn't be able to sleep overnight. They sleep with me and they keep me warm overnight. And he says at that moment I realized it was really cold in there. And she didn't have any means of keeping herself warm through the winter. So what he started doing, he's a farmer. He has a tractor. So they raised money and they bought a wood chipper. And he's using his tractor and that wood chipper, and what they offer in my hometown, they offer free wood chipping service. Under one condition, we keep all of the chips. And they would go and they would clean people's yards, they would take the brush out, they would take the tree down, they would chip it down, and then they would deliver bags of this chipped wood to people who can't keep themselves warm during the wintertime. And that became so popular that they were even on the national news. And the national news invited people, hey guys, whoever wants to help, either with your money or with your time, if you want to donate, please get in touch with these, and that's the thing, they're not going to say with the church. Get in touch with these people and so on, and help them. And he told me the first one who volunteered that next week was the cameraman who was recording the show. And what they started doing now, what they want to do for next winter, this winter they want to get a pellet maker. Because they came to realize the chips are really hard to manage. They burn fast, they make a lot of mess, not as much heat, so they want to start making pellets, those logs, out of those chips, and then deliver them like that, and they're raising money for that. So I brought some of my money that I planned over there for some stuff. I left them literally all I had for that. And last week I was at the Carbon Valley Church, and I told them this story as well, and they raised $1,800 on spot to support that. So I would ask you as well. I know that there are so many needs around us, but this one was on my heart, really. If you're moved, if you feel that God is moving you to support this project that they're trying to do, when you fill out your envelopes, just mark it over there, the wood chipper, and Debbie will know how to sort that out. They are simply trying to preach the gospel without opening their mouths. Because the moment they open their mouths, people close their ears. So they have to wait to be asked, who are you and why are you doing this? And then they have the opportunity to do that. Fulfilling people's needs first, making sure that people understand that they care. And then after that, the Lord can walk in. Another thing that Jesus was doing, and I think he learned that from Mary as well, is written in John chapter 4. John chapter 4, verses 7, 8, and 9. A woman from Samaria came to draw water. And Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink." For his disciples have gone away into the city to buy food. And the Samaritan woman said to him, "How is it that you, a Jew, ask a drink from me, a woman from Samaria?" For Jews had no dealings with Samaritans. And then we know the rest of the story. The Jesus goes into a long talk with her. They had a conversation that literally changed her life. But here's the thing. If there was anybody over there at that well, this conversation would not have happened. If Jesus' disciples were there and he started talking to the woman of Samaria, they would freak out. They would immediately throw a fit. Why are you talking to her? What's going on here? Or if there were any other people from her village there with her, there would be no conversation whatsoever. Jesus literally had to wait for a one-on-one opportunity to talk to her. Have you ever had that, "We'll talk when we get home," from your mom? Usually not the most glorious moment, right? Usually "we'll talk when we get home" was preceded by some inglorious thing that you did, right? And that's so funny. Like, I remember, my mom doesn't remember that at all, but it's carved into my memory. I was probably like 4 or something like that, because my sister was in a stroller. And my mom was pushing the stroller, and I kept jumping and trying to step on the wheel of the stroller for whatever reason. I remember that it was fun. It was like fun to kind of slip off that. And she kept telling me, "Stop it, no." And then at one point, instead of forward, the wheel went sideways. And she was so angry. And when she gets angry, she didn't yell. She would get real quiet. So she just grabbed me. "We'll talk when we get home." Oh boy. Now, I remember that walk home. I remember that walk home. Nothing was being said all the way through. Just the awareness that when we get home, some stuff's going to happen. Not all of them were that bad. Like, there were a lot of one-on-one conversations that needed to happen that way, because in the crowd, in the moment, I wouldn't be able to hear what she had to say. So when we get home, she's like, "Hey, you remember when that happened? You remember you said that, or they said that? Well, actually, this is how things are." Like, okay. Jesus did that all the time. That is our experience with him pretty much on a daily basis. We come to church, yes, and this is an opportunity to meet him as a family. But throughout your day, you have a lot of one-on-one with him. And he tells you a lot in those moments. Now, how many times did you use those one-on-one with other people because there was really no opportunity for you to do it in any other way? We are very, especially in our society, we have this issue with the personal bubble. You know? In Europe, they have none of that. They're going to be in your face. They're going to be like, "Oh, this is a nice shirt. Did I pinch you? Oh, that's fine." They're going to be in your face, inside your personal bubble with their questions, with the stuff that they ask, with the stuff that they say. And frankly, getting used to life in the United States, I was uncomfortable for a little while until I realized, like, no, there is no need to be uncomfortable. Nobody has an ulterior motive or like a bad idea with that. It's just the way that they do things. But granted, a lot of things come across much faster and much easier. Because over here, we are constantly worried we're going to offend somebody with something we say, what we say. We have constantly, are they going to call HR on me if I say this? And granted, some people deserve it. But very often in that fear of being personal with people, we lose the ability to be genuine with them as well. Being one-on-one with people in our fragility, in our pain, in our struggles, is what makes us uncomfortable, but very often opens the doors for us to have these one-on-one conversations. Well, they will ask you, how did you go through that? Then you can share. But the key thing is understanding that nothing trumps one-on-one when you talk to people. It's been 2 years since the last time I was there. And yeah, we talk every week. We see each other on Viber and WhatsApp. But without a hug, oh my goodness, it's a whole new world of connection when you are right there, in their aura, in their space, and they're in yours. Don't lose that just because the society tells us that we have to keep a distance from everybody, either in fear of being called out, hurt, or just our fragility will be misinterpreted for weakness, or there's a whole lot of things that our society is teaching us how not to connect to people. I encourage you not to be afraid of these one-on-ones with people around you, because that is where you are not alone, but Jesus is with you as well. And the last one that I would like to bring up is the Jesus method written in John in chapter 13. John chapter 13, verses 14 and 15. This is the moment when Jesus, just before he's going to be arrested and taken to the final weekend of his life, he washes the disciples' feet and they freak out. They jump, especially Peter. And then Jesus tells them this: "If I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example that you also should do just as I have done to you." Who here ever tasted my cooking? Few people did. Did you guys like it? I love cooking. I just love playing with food. I love experimenting, trying different spices, trying different ingredients, experimenting. And sometimes it doesn't work out that well. But that was like way back. Right now, when you get compliment from Pastor Gordon on how good your barbecue is, that means something. I picked that up from my mom. Now, again, part of my dysfunctional upbringing, my dad was not really present as much for me to pick up from him what a boy would pick up from a dad. So I picked up the kitchen stuff. I was like Jacob, like hanging around the tents. That was my thing. Like I was always in the garden, pulling stuff up, pruning, cleaning, and so on. And then I was in the kitchen helping mom. And I picked up the love for that. And she really never had to tell me, clean up after yourself, or do the dishes, or none of that stuff. It was just like a part of something that I picked up. Okay, that's the way that things are done. We prepare, we clean up, we have foods, we clean up. And she really never had to say anything about that. My sister, she's younger, she's spoiled. She was always spoiled. That's another story that we don't need to get into right now. But I remember, like, she would kind of take advantage of me. She just kind of tosses her stuff over there, and then I clean it up. I was fine with that. I didn't care. Until later on I did care. But it's interesting, like, we were talking about some of that stuff as well. And especially when my sister joined us for this week that we spent together, like, there were a lot of things that we just kind of did. And we noticed, and it was funny, like, when my sister and I talked, like, you're just like, Mom. And she just picked it up, and I just picked it up on the way without being told. It was just presented as a way of life, as a way of behavior, as a way of treating other people. She was always so much into helping others. And both my sister and I picked that up. Another reason that I am who I am is because I always had this desire to help others. And I don't remember that. She told me that the first vocation that I opted for when I was a kid, I wanted to be a cop, to help others. I don't remember that part. I remember wanting to be a doctor for as long as I remember my childhood. And then the pastor came in when I got to know God and realized that if I really want to help people, helping them find eternal life, what more can I do for them than that? Are you a good example to your kids? Are you a good example to your parents? Are you a good example to anyone in your sphere of influence? Or are you the questionable one? Are you the one other parents use an example how not to behave? I sure hope not. Because I was used like that when I was a youth pastor by some of the parents who left long ago. But it's an interesting feeling being used as a bad role model. Still, are you preaching the gospel with the way you live a life? Are you representing Jesus with the things you say to somebody, but representing to Jesus to people around you? Is God being preached by your social media posts? It's funny, some people just did this, and some were like straight up this. I want to encourage you guys to live the gospel. Preach by example. Be the ones they will copy because they want to look like Jesus. Paul said that to Timothy. Just copy what I'm doing. Just act the way you see me act. And allow God to use that. Everybody got a mirror today, right? Use it. Use that mirror to see if you look like Jesus. But seriously, every day ask yourself, did I misrepresent my God today? And how can I do to make it better tomorrow? That is how we really preach the gospel. That is what Jesus did. He lived it, and then he said, follow my example. That is how our mom taught us, showed us, and then we followed the example. That is how we are called to preach the gospel in our life. Show the people what does it mean when God changes your life. And allow the Spirit to do the rest. Happy Mother's Day. May you find in your memory lanes some lessons of what you can do for people around you in your life, and may His name be praised. Amen.